On today's episode of Safety Debris, we will sift through the clutter of daily life to find the gems of wisdom. Today, we're thrilled to have a guest who knows all about navigating the emotional roller coaster of leadership without losing your lunch. Well, she's a globe-trotting speaker on emotional intelligence and a guru in transformational leadership.
And Richard, when she's not busy enlightening her clients or her students, you might find her practicing mindfulness, or perhaps even trying to teach her dog a few emotional intelligence tricks. Though she'd be the first to admit, her pooch is still a work in progress.
Well, we get to have a conversation and spend some time with this cool person from our podcast studio on the west coast of beautiful British Columbia, right here in Vancouver. Welcome to our podcast that confirms that safety does indeed have a personality.
On this podcast, we get to know people on a lighter, more personal and fun level who are affiliated with safety, including mental health, leadership, authors, safety professionals, and professional speakers and coaches, like our guest today. This is Safety Debris with me, Tanya Steele.
And me, Richard Dulong. Today, our guest is the president and CEO of EI Experience, an executive leadership development and emotional intelligence training firm. Her courses and modules have been adopted by top universities, and she's trained over 45,000 business leaders across the continent in highly regarded corporations. She's a certified emotional intelligence and leadership development expert, certified speaking professional, a corporate trainer, award-winning author, and a university professor in Vancouver.
Since launching her book, The Emotionally Strong Leader, an inside-out journey to transformational leadership, Carolyn has quickly gained acclaim following her appearances on CTV Your Morning, Daytime Chicago, Global TV, The Social, Slice TV, OWN, Lifetime TV, Movie Time Prime, and Tubi. Her book was awarded the Axiom Book Award for the Best Business Book in the Leadership category in 2023. And in 2022, she won Forward Indies Book of the Year in the Career category.
And she lives in Coquitlam, BC, a community that is a part of what is known as the Lower Mainland of the surrounding area of Vancouver. And she's a friend and a professional speaking colleague of both Tanya and me. Please welcome to the Safety Debris podcast, Carolyn Stern.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my friends. How are you?
Yeah, great to have you.
We are so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here. And today we will be asking Carolyn what got her interested and started in emotional intelligence, how we can learn to recognize our emotions and change our reactions. And we'll hear some strategies on how we can foster our own EI skills.
But wait, before we do that, if you can be patient enough for that and a little bit more, we'll also throw in a free pair of Ginsu steak knives to all our listeners. Just kidding. We haven't nailed down that sponsor yet. But you're in luck because we can do this. Let's listen to hear what kind of music tugs at the heartstrings of an emotional leader. From Carolyn's personal music playlist, here's country singer, songwriter, producer, and actor Tim McGraw on Safety Debris.
Know the difference between sleeping with someone and sleeping with someone you love. I love you ain't no pickup line, so always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, don't lie. I know you got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind. When those dreams you're dreaming come to you, when the work you put in is realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. it's hot, eat a root beer popsicle. Shut off the AC and roll the windows down. Let that summer sun shine. Always stay humble and kind. Don't take for granted the love this life gives you. When you get where you're going, don't forget, turn back around. Help the next one in line. Always stay humble and kind.
A few words of wisdom from Tim McGraw. What a great song, Humble and Kind on Safety Debris. And there are a lot of songs in country music that talk about drinking in bars, and there are 5 country superstars who do not drink at all. I thought I'd run them through you. Yeah. Brad Paisley, he's never drank. Charles Kelly, he's one of the members of
Lady Antebellum, or Lady A, right? Yeah.
Yeah. He's been sober since 2022. They actually canceled the tour because he was stumbling all over, and he says, I got to get sober. And that's what he's done the last 2 years. So good for him. Shania Twain, who doesn't drink while working. So I guess that means when she's recording or on tour. Tim McGraw, he's been sober since 2013. And Keith Urban has been sober since 2006.
That's cool, right?
Yeah. What's
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's thousands of country artists and 5 of them are sober. What are we saying here? I'm not sure.
What we're saying is that was a nice, positive country song as opposed to drinking, right on, drinking party, your dog ran away, all that kind of stuff. It was be humble and kind.
Be humble and kind. That's right. There's the message. And
message.
There you go.
The epitome of Carolyn Stern. Yes, Carolyn.
Yes,
why do you love that song so much?
Yeah.
I love it because, especially I think in our industry, right, as speakers and specifically in the speaking industry, right, your ego can get the best of you. Mm-hmm. And I think, you get a lot of people coming up and idolizing what your message is or idolizing you as a person. And I think we all have to remember that we all put our pants on today the same way. And it doesn't matter level of fame, how much money I put in my pockets. We're all human. And the one thing that unites us all, which is what I write about, is emotions. And I think if we can always remember to be kind, right? My whole thing is strong mind, kind heart. Right? Nice. Can we all have a strong mind and a kind heart and lead with that? To me, that's what emotionally strong leadership is all about.
It's awesome. Funny when you say fame, because during the song, I forgot that Richard and I had seen you speak live. And so you signed our books, and I was being cheeky because I opened up my book. And of course, you signed my back of my book here to Tanya Favorite. And I was trying to rub that into Richard's face. But then Richard, he holds up his book on his back page, and it said, no, other one.
Other way, Richard.
Yeah. Richard Moore Favorite. What? Yeah.
And it's in her penmanship, not mine.
And I didn't even have my special pen that day. So talk about being, that's life, right? Things end up being perfect. So, you do what you had. I didn't even have my special silver pen where I normally sign books with.
That's all right.
But you are both my favorites.
Thank you.
I love you both equally.
He will hold that book out when I go to visit his house. He'll have it turned to that page so that I remember. Do
I have to break up this? I feel like I have 2 children on the line, and I'm having to pick my favorites. I love you both.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
Thanks. Yeah. So before we did this wonderful musical break, which I'm a big fan, I'm a country fan, as our listeners know, and I love Tim McGraw. I mean, who and Faith? Come on. But I did mention that we would find out why you, Carolyn, got interested in emotional intelligence, and of course, how we can recognize our emotions and change our reactions. So let's start with the first question. So why are you so passionate about this subject, or what got you interested in EI?
Because for many decades, my emotions took havoc of my life. And I can list, we could have a whole show on the laundry list of undesirable consequences of my emotions taking over. But I realized And I think that we've all been hoodwinked all of these years to think that being emotional was a sign of weakness, right? I named the book The Emotionally Strong Leader Purposely, which is you can be emotional, which all that means is I feel things deeply.
Right.
My problem wasn't that I was feeling things deeply, is that my emotions were taking over. And so what emotionally strong leadership really means is you can be in the driver's seat of your emotions. So that when something bad happens, that you can figure out what you're feeling, figure out what triggered that feeling, and regulate. And a perfect example of that is, I think I've shared with both of you privately, but 10 minutes before I was about to get on stage in front of 400 people at a conference, I got the call from my mother that my father passed away. Well, I had 10 minutes to go through a myriad of emotions. And let's be honest, relationships are complicated. My relationship with my father was very complicated. So I felt sadness, I felt anger, I felt grief, I felt disappointment, I felt a myriad of things. And I had 10 minutes to process, and then I had to park it. And for 60 minutes, give a educational and inspiring talk on emotional intelligence. Wow. And at the very end of my talk, I said, I just want to pay tribute. 10 minutes before this talk happened, my father passed away. So this talk is to my father. And the audience's mouth dropped because they couldn't believe what was going on for me internally. And that externally, I wasn't showing it. Well, I could have never done that years ago. It's only in the last 25 years that I have learned to become a master. Not 9 out of 10 times I'm in the driver's seat of my emotions. So when bad things happen, which they will for all of us, I'm sure this is what also you talk about with safety, right? When something bad happens on the job, what do? We're in control. Our emotions are not bigger than us.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's really good, Carolyn. And I love that you said that, because when you said before you went up on stage, a lot of times we will say things like, pull yourself together, but it's really not pulling yourself together. It's about recognizing what your emotion is and what it's trying to teach you or tell you in that moment. And I love that you've defined that and you've said that, like, hey, this emotion serves me. So how is it serving me? What do I need to learn? And then what are my steps to get through the next 60 minutes, 5 minutes, or have that time to process the information, as opposed to the pull yourself together kind of nonsense that we say to ourselves or to other people.
And I think the problem is we overvalue positive emotions. Like, why is it okay to show your excitement and passion at work, but you better hide your frustration and disappointment behind closed doors? I think we need to stop overvaluing positive emotions and undervaluing negative emotions, because both provide us a gift, exactly like you're saying, Tanya. They both give us information. But if we don't understand our emotions, and many people don't, then we've got to figure out what our emotion, and the two questions I ask in my book a lot throughout the different chapters is, what are you feeling? And what is that feeling telling you about you, the situation, others? That can be the key to unlocking a lot more stuff than just the emotion itself.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that you brought safety in, because as you know, we're both safety professionals. And in our world of construction, or not just construction, but heavy industry, so forestry, manufacturing, like all of those kind of heavy industry stuffs, emotions really aren't talked about. It is the Gen X, suck it up, princess kind of, feeling that you have in it. But we here in the Lower Mainland, and some of you listening probably heard about it, but not that long ago, we had a death in Vancouver at our Oak Ridge site, where a mom who just moved to the country was crushed by a fly table and killed on that site. And there was hundreds of workers on that site that were directly related to it or farther up, didn't necessarily see it, but farther apart. And one of the biggest things that they're talking about is we need to talk about these emotions. We need to have the conversation. And this company, and Carolyn, you may be really impressed by this, or maybe you can add something to it. But this company said, we're going to hire somebody, and they hired Leslie Montgomery. They hired Leslie to come on site, and her job, she's a safety professional, but her job was just to go around and talk to people and ask them, how are they doing, and giving them the space to actually talk about the emotion and feel that negative emotion or the very emotion of anger, disappointment, being mad to sad to all of these things. And that company hired her just to do that. And when people didn't want to talk or they weren't able to, she would just do like hazard assessments with them or something. What's your thoughts on something like that in the workplace?
Well, first of all, I think that's fantastic. We call those, in my book, I talk about it as inner iceberg conversations. So humans are a lot like an iceberg. What you see is what's just immediately apparent, right? But what's below the surface? So you see my communications, you see my actions, that's all above the surface. But what's below the surface is what this Leslie was doing, is she was asking people to tell them what's really going on underneath the surface. What are you afraid of? What are your concerns? What assumptions are you making about the safety incident that happened? You know, what motivates you? What keeps you up at night? Those kinds of conversations very few organizations have. And they bring me in, just like they bring Leslie in, to have these conversations. And people always say, well, why do we need Carolyn? Well, you don't. But you need to start having and being brave enough to have those conversations. See, I'm not afraid of any emotion people share. I remember I had a client once that said to me, I didn't want to talk to you because I was really angry. I'm not afraid if you get angry at me. I mean, I'm afraid if you do something with that anger that is inappropriate. But if you want to just say, I am angry and here's why, I can take that, because feelings are like clouds. They come and go. They float into our minds and they blow away and leave. They're not always final or factual, but fleeting and subjective. So the fact that Leslie went to each of those workers and said, what are you feeling? The three questions I always tell every leader that they need to ask every employee is, what are you feeling? What is that feeling telling you about you? And how can I support you? The big mistake is people think that you have to be someone's emotional therapist. You don't. We're not qualified, most of us. But what you can do is be brave enough to have the conversations about emotions. And that's what Leslie was doing, which I think is fantastic, and good on that organization for having the foresight to know that that was probably needed.
So you mentioned, Carolyn, that you did a talk 10 minutes after you heard the sad news about your dad passing. And of course, you shared that with your audience. And as you described, their jaw dropped and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she just did what she did, with all that emotion and turmoil going on in her heart and in her mind. And that's the reality of it for so many people, is they don't have the capacity to manage that. Like you said, at one time, it was difficult for you. And so people are impressed by that, by watching you on stage and going, wow, how did she do that? So why do so many people have difficulty managing their emotions? And what kind of impact does that have on them personally, their career, businesses, that sort of thing?
Great question. Emotions impact everything. They impact our memory, our communication, our relationships, our decision-making, our creativity. I mean, I could go on and on. Mm-hmm. How you feel at work affects how you perform at work.
True statement.
Right? And I wish organizations would realize, if we're measuring performance, then we got to get to the heart of the issue, because it's our people that are impacting our performance. And if we don't talk about the issues, about what people are feeling, then you're going to spend inappropriate time focusing on disrespectful communications and not great behaviors. And so, Richard, I've for 25 years, I studied this. I just was like, my emotions were taking over. I could have never done what I had done on that stage. But here are the 5 steps, and it's super easy, and it's super easy to remember.
You got a pen, Richard? Write it down.
Hang on a second here.
we got the cream of the crop. If you're listening, you just need to pull over right now. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. This is it. All right, we're ready.
I call this the high EI way. Instead of the highway, the high
That's
highway.
clever.
Get it?
Oh, look at you.
Clever.
Yeah, not just a pretty face. So it starts with number one, recognize. The first R, recognize. Notice what you're feeling. Now, here's the problem, people. None of us have a great emotional vocabulary. Even Tanya, when you were listing off those emotions, you started to think, okay, wait, mad, sad, glad, like what else are there, right?
Right? What are there? Yeah.
That's right. There are thousands of emotions out there. So the first part is recognize what you're feeling. The second part is reflect. The second R, reflect. Understand where that feeling's coming from. What triggered that feeling? What is a trigger? It's a person, thing, or situation that causes an emotional reaction in someone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is the problem. We trigger people every day, all day long. We don't realize we're triggering you. Like I remember when my employees send me a text, when I send them something and they send me a text, "What's up?" I get triggered. Like, am I bothering you? Like, does this but that's the generation, right? The younger generation, yeah. How they respond. But that's I get right. Triggered. I'm like, excuse me, am I bothering you? So what are your triggers? Now, here's the interesting thing. If I asked you both what triggers you, like Richard, what are your top triggers? Tanya, what are your top triggers? Do you even know what those are?
Probably not off the top of my head.
I can think of one. Starts with T, ends with A.
Tanya, come on.
I'm teasing. Come on. Come on. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think the challenge is many of us don't know our triggers. But if I started to list them for you, like entitlement, a rocky handoff on a project, maybe people being late, being interrupted, being dismissed, not respecting boundaries, then I see you nodding your head, Tanya, going, that makes sense. But very few of us know what our triggers until it's too late. The third R is regulate. This is about managing and controlling that feeling. This is about whatever triggered you, creating space between the trigger and your response. The fourth one is reset. Calm down, gain perspective, and restore emotional balance. This could mean, your reality isn't the reality. So maybe you hate your boss, but maybe no matter what they do, it's because it's from them that's bothering you, that maybe they're a trigger. And the fifth one is respond. Once I know what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, and I've regulated that feeling and I've reset and I've calmed down, then I can talk to you respectfully and professionally. So it's 5 R's, and it took me 25 years to figure it out, but 9 out of 10 times I'm in charge of my big emotions.
That's awesome. And thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate it. And, funny that you said I have a hard time, and I do have a hard time defining emotions. But in your book, because I remember I opened to that page, you have a whole page in your book of all the different, not even all, a small amount of emotions that when I was reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Like it makes sense when you look at it, but embarrassed, indifferent, afraid, sad, jealous, calm, surprised, hopeful, content, relieved, proud, confident. Like these are really great words and we don't use them.
We have a very limited vocabulary, which is why that poster is right above my desk right now. If I were to turn my camera around, I look at that at least 3 times a day because it reminds me, like, do you both get into the practice of before a podcast, how am I feeling? Yeah. Right? Because you're not always happy. You're not always in a good mood every single time. So how is that feel? How are you feeling and how is that affecting your performance?
I was kind of giggling a little bit when Tanya was going through the emotional poster that you have in your book, because I was thinking, you have no idea how great it is to have pictograms in the book so that Tanya can read the book too. I mean, it's just like, if that wasn't in there, like, what would she have to read? Nothing, I'm telling you. I love her like my sister.
There are a few pictures, Tanya. There's a few pictures in the book, so you will get something out of the book, including that iceberg that I was talking about, the iceberg of all the things below the surface that we don't see.
And I did see that iceberg because, You're not far from the truth, Richard, because I flipped through her book and I stopped on the pictures. Come on, who's with me? Please, somebody email me and say you're
I'm
with
with
me.
you. I'm with you.
Thank
Come
you.
on.
But I did turn right away to this iceberg because we use it in safety.
Yeah, we do.
For incidents and accidents and money and what you see for costs and stuff doesn't matter. But so yes, so thank you. The book is, it's really well laid out. It's not like your 400 pages of just these words. Like, it's thoughtful. You have places for us to make notes and write in it, and I really appreciate that in a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually a workbook. So halfway through the book, there are 11 worksheets that will take you through my 6-step process of how do you enhance your emotional intelligence. Now, I'm not sitting here on the other end saying, oh, I'm emotionally superb, just be like me. I'm a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time, just like you two. But what the book and the process that I take myself through every year. I know that sounds funny that I take myself through my own process every year, but every year my emotional intelligence changes, right? Because what is life facing me this year? And certain skills, I'm better at certain years than I am at others. And I want Tanya, you said you're not great with emotional expression. You're not great at expressing how you feel. Well, maybe Richard's on the other end. Maybe he's too expressive. Well, the strategies I would give Richard, who might be an oversharer, and you, who might be an undersharer, are two different strategies. So the most important thing that I do with leaders or with employees is to figure out what is your default right now, today, in this moment. If I took a snapshot of your life, what's your emotional makeup?
Right.
And what is going on in your life? How are you faring with all of that? That's what we measure.
It's good. So why are you an oversharer, Richard?
Well, I just want to be perfectly clear about my teasing of Tanya so that there's no misunderstandings. I love her like my sister. And to be perfectly honest, I live by the adage my mom said, you tease the ones you love. So
Right.
as promised, we're going to learn how to foster our EI skills. We're going to learn some fun facts about Carolyn. She happened to be a child actor, so we'll find a little bit more about that. That'll be fun. And we're also going to talk about the content of her book, which we started to poke into here. About the emotionally strong leader. I'd like to get into that. I got a couple of questions for that when we come back after this great song that she's chosen from her personal music list. Another one from Tim McGraw. This is a beautiful song. This one's called Live Like You Were Dying, and it's on Safety Debris.
Skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. Man, I loved deeper and I spoke sweeter and I watched an eagle as it was flying. And he said, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying, 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 to live like you were dying.
We're all getting learned up here today. Lessons in Life with Tim McGraw, one of the greatest and most successful country music artists of all time. Him and his wife had a big tour a few years ago. It was one of the biggest grossing country music tours in the history of country music touring, and certainly in the history of touring in the United States.
Is that right?
That's a big thing. Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. That song. Go ahead.
I thought that would have been a Garth Brooks thing, but I get it.
Well, he's definitely probably at the top there, and he's rounding out probably the top 5 here. So yeah, I would say that that song there was a big song for Tim, as most of them were that he's got. But this one won him Best Male Country Music Performance in 2004. So
nice, that's cool.
I love the message, right? Live like dying. Like
Beautiful.
live life to the fullest, become the best person you can be.
There's a theme here. We got a theme.
Yeah, and I really, prior to, like, our new tagline is embrace emotions, elevate leadership, which really represents what my company is about. But prior to that, my tagline was learn more, be better, teach others. And so to me, this is all about just trying to be the best you can be.
Right.
And that's why I love that song.
You know, I want to jump on what you just said there too, Carolyn. I think it's important because in chapter 9 of your book, The Emotionally Strong Leader, you state, learning your why is simply looking at yourself and determining why you are the way you are without assigning any wrongness to it. So my question is, what if you really don't like something about yourself? Or how do you deal or work through that?
Yeah, well, that's actually why I wrote that part in the book is once I figured out that I lacked independence. So this kind of stems from my mother, bless her heart, was a helicopter mother. She tried to do everything for me. So she hoovered over me. So I, as a 53-year-old woman now, need a lot of validation. I need a lot of reassurance. So now, once I kind of put a name to it, then I could go, oh, well, that's why I don't trust my own judgments. That's why I ask a lot of people's opinions. So once I knew that, now I don't like this about me. I don't like going around going, hey, I'm Carolyn Stern, I'm needy, right? Like, I don't love that quality
what do you think of me? Tell me what's great about me.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But at least now I can do something about it. So looking in the mirror at warts and all is not easy. This work that I put out in the book is not easy, but we can't keep putting our head in the sand, because this would have saved me. Emotional intelligence truly did save my life. I was in therapy for sure a third of my life, but when I was growing up in my teens and 20s, all I would do with the therapist would be go to the therapist and tell them the story. What was the story? I'm having problems with Richard today, and I would tell the story. But I didn't talk about the skill that I was lacking that got me in the predicament itself. So the moment that people can say, okay, this is who I am, whether I like it or not, but this is why I am the way I am. So I'm not blaming my mother. Everyone did the best that they could with what they had. But at least I understand, wow, I didn't learn those skills like maybe the rest of you, because she would do everything for me. And just before she passed away, I kid you not, this is on my phone at every single keynote or workshop I had to do, my mother would text me. So if I was in Toronto and I had to be up at 5 a.m, my mother would be texting me here in Vancouver at 2 a.m. to make sure I was up at 5 a.m. And that happened up until she passed away.
Wow.
So, and she loved me and she had good intentions. But what it does is creates a culture of dependence. Now, how does this relate to the workplace? Leaders who are giving their employees the answers when they come to them with problems. Hey, Richard, I have a problem. What should I do? If you give me the answers, you're creating a culture of dependence. I am not learning. I am just relying on you to tell me. And so I think if we all, as grown-up adults, kind of look at ourselves, good, bad, and ugly, and say, who am I? And how is this helping and hurting my leadership? That to me is when we can make change. If we keep putting our heads in the stand, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. If we want to do different, we've got to be different.
Yeah, it's really good. Now, what made you go from, okay, so you're a child star, yes?
Yes.
Do we know?
I don't know if you would say that, but I was a child actor. Yes, I wouldn't say star.
We say star here because this is how we feel about you. So
okay, well, Stern is star in German, so somewhere I was a star.
Yeah, I'm not lying. So do we know the show that you were on?
Yes, and you could Google me and you'll see me at 12 years old. Mr. Wizard's World. It was the longest, and I'm sure, Richard, in your research, you'll Google it, but it was the longest running I'll save you the time. It was the longest running Nickelodeon show way back in the how old was I? In the 80s.
That's awesome. That's so I love that.
So I would be like, hey, Mr. Wizard, how did you do that? And, we'd make little geysers in his little kitchen. And yeah.
Oh,
That's awesome. Fun. I love that. So what made you go from a child star to realizing that you could make a career out of your emotional life, being emotional in general?
Well, I guess there's two parts to that question, which is a great question. I always loved performing. I would make my parents and my sisters sit through lots of little performances of me dancing or singing. So I always liked being a performer and being the center of attention. I don't know. I was the baby, so I had a lot of attention. And plus, to be honest, if I look at my sister and myself, I certainly was the star, right? I was the goody two shoes. I did really well in school. She was the troublemaker. She was the rebel. So I definitely got a lot of positive attention, and she probably got a lot of negative attention. But on the emotional part, where this stemmed from, as I said, I was a very emotional child, but I actually got this when I was a high school teacher. There were two kids in my class, and I talk about it in the book. Cindy and Kyle, and I'm, 27 years old teaching 18-year-old kids, 17, 18-year-old kids. And on the first day of class, the boy and the girl got into a fist fight. And I thought, oh my God, how are they going to learn from me, let alone listen to me? So these were the two troublemakers in the school, and I made them. It was an entrepreneurship class, so I came up with the crazy idea to make them the VP of production and the VP of human resources. And people, my faculty friends, thought I was crazy. Like, what are you doing to the worst kids? But I believed in them when no one else did. Mm-hmm. And true story, to see when you emotionally connect with someone. And it wasn't easy work on my part or on theirs, right? These were troubled kids, but I gave them a ton of responsibility. They had the keys to my car. They could take off with my car. They could, I was saying, open this. They had to spend hours, opening the business, running it, making sure all the staff, the students were working. So they were working long hours. But because I believed in them and I connected with them on a heart level, it changed everything. And one of those two students became the most improved student. True story. 20 years later, as I'm writing the book, I'm not kidding, I reach out, thank God for Facebook. I reach out to one of the students, Cindy, and she said to me, you didn't know this, but when I was in grade 12, I had just gotten back into my home because I was in a foster home because I almost killed myself. And my home wasn't in a good place. And you giving me that opportunity saved my life. And this was I didn't know that story. I just connected with her. And to me, that's the power of emotionally strong leadership. When you can connect with people on a heart level, not a task completer level, that on a heart level, people will move mountains for you. Mm-hmm. And then, so that moment happened in my 20s. Then I became a university professor and got to see time and time again what we were teaching and not teaching. And I thought, there's a gap in our education system. We're teaching them the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. We're not teaching them how to handle stress. I give them stress. I don't teach them how to handle it. I put them in teams. I don't teach them how to work within those teams. And that's when I realized there was a gap, and I started building curriculum from that.
What an incredible story, hey? And you don't know which lives you're going to impact or how it's going to impact even years later. Thanks for sharing that, Carolyn.
Yeah, it really is. It really is the reason why I do what I do. That's that class and that moment. And you never know the impact that you'll have on people. And we need to start changing our education system. It took me 5 years to lobby to get an emotional intelligence course in the School of Business because my faculty said it wasn't academic enough. Yet we all know it's our soft skills. You're right. Is that your IQ might get you the job and get your foot in the door, but it's your EQ that's going to get you promoted.
Yeah, that's right. Well, in the introduction of your book, you state, we suck at understanding our feelings. That sounds like something Tanya would say.
I do say suck a lot.
We're going to find out why that is. Not why Tanya says that a lot, but we want to know why Carolyn says that. But we're going to find out that after we hear the next song from her personal playlist, This is another one from Tim McGraw. This was called I Called Mama, and it's on Safety Debris.
To stop off at a Texaco, buy a Slim Jim and a Coke. Park out by the water just to watch that river flow. Grab my guitar from the backseat, write a song just for me. Sing it for the blue sky and a couple live oak trees, and think of home. Grab my phone from my pocket. Instead of saying tomorrow I'm gonna, I call mama. I call mama.
That's Tim McGraw on Safety Debris, and I Called Mama, another hand-selected, perfectly beautiful song by Carolyn Stern off her personal musical playlist. Not only can this guy sing, but he's received critical acclaim for his acting abilities too. That's Tim McGraw. How do you pick 3 songs from Tim McGraw with a library that he has? One of my favorite songs is called She's My Kind of Rain. I think that's one of my top songs of his. I think of that one when I think of my wife, because it speaks to that for me emotionally. But this particular song, how did you manage this one? Why did you choose this one?
I knew you were going to ask me that. There's talking a lot about death on this podcast today. So unfortunately, my beautiful mother, who's right here, is on February 1st passed away suddenly. So
of this year, that's of this year. And just so the listeners know, you're just showing a picture that you have of your mom on your desk there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you. And we thought she had broken her foot. She had fallen, and we took her to the hospital to find out she had cancer in multiple organs, and 13 days passed away. And she was my best friend, my mentor. And so this song means a lot to me. Because the reminder of that healing power of a voice of someone who loves you. And true story, I haven't stopped her phone so that I can call her phone and still listen to her voice.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to keep that for a while because I miss hearing from her. I miss when good things happen to me, and when bad things happen to me, I miss talking to her. So, I shared that she was a helicopter mom raising me, but at the end in the hospital, or even while she lived with me for the last 5 years, and in the end I became the helicopter mom to her. I was overprotective of her, not only in the hospital, but even during COVID. Like, I was very like, Mama Bear, don't touch my baby cub. So it was full circle.
So, Carolyn, we're running out of time, which is really unfortunate because we all have so much more to ask you. But I do want to ask you that in your book, you say we suck at understanding our feelings. Why is that?
Because we don't spend enough time thinking about them and figuring out why they're there. And I think, again, it's simple. Tanya, that poster, 3 times a day, pay attention to how you're feeling and figuring out what triggered that feeling and making better conscious choices. I think if we all did that, we'd live a lot more honestly and authentically, but also more open to ideas. Like, I don't have to agree with you, but at least if I know where people are coming from, and why they do what they do and why I'm doing what I'm doing, we could make more conscious choices.
So then what you're saying is we need to recognize, we need to reflect, we need to regulate, we need to reset, and we need to respond to our emotional intelligence.
The high EI way.
That's awesome. Now, to end on just some really great things you've been doing, changing the world. Your company has been incredible. Your book is amazing, huge success. You've even been in Forbes and European Business Review. Globe and Mail. You're just doing all these things. But because I know you a little bit more as our friendship grows, you have found love. Recently,
I have found love. Yes, look at that. Yes, and this is something I'm very grateful my mom got to see before she passed. So in October, 53. Well, I was 52 at the time, got engaged, found the love of my life.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And, as a strong, powerful businesswoman, I found it very challenging to find a man that supported that wasn't competitive of it, wasn't intimidated by it. And Ian, the love of my life, not like lifts me up and supports me in any which way he can. So I'm very lucky. I had to kiss a lot of frogs to find my prince. I am glad I did, and I'm glad my mother got to see the engagement and hear about it.
That's awesome. We're so excited for you.
Yeah.
So we really hope that you have enjoyed this episode and meeting Carolyn Stern here on Safety Debris. It has been a lot of fun. It's been a little emotional. And thank you for sharing and being transparent and giving us your inner thoughts there, Carolyn. If you want to get in touch with Carolyn, you can do so by going to her website, carolynstern.com, or you can find her on LinkedIn.
Of course. And thank you, listener, for joining us. And please like us and subscribe to our podcast. If you would like, send us an email of who you would like to hear on our show. Email us your suggestions to safetydebris@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Tanya Steele.
And I'm Richard Dulong. Remember, don't let anyone ever tell you different. Safety does indeed have a personality. Guests like Carolyn Stern have proven that to be very true. Well, it's the end of the episode, and we always close out with Canadian music. It's no different this week. Today, we have chosen the most awarded Canadian country music artist in history. Throughout his remarkable career, this artist has always focused on using his celebrity to help by shining light on the lives of those less fortunate. You will relate to this, Tanya. He's traveled extensively to developing countries around the world to raise awareness for various humanitarian aid organizations. This is Paul Brandt with Alberta Bound, and it's on Safety Debris.
The sign said 40 miles to Canada, my truck tore across Montana. Ian Tyson sang a lonesome lullaby. And so I cranked up the radio, 'cause there's just a little more to go before I cross the border at that sweetgrass sign.